be down here.
I'm gonna walk to the train station at 5:30 in the morning.
It's apparently
Good
white
luck.
out.
Okay, we're live.
All right, welcome everybody. I'll call this September 11th, 2025 meeting of the Ad Hoc Reconstitution and Executive Committee meeting to order. We will start with a moment of silence to honor the memory of the victims, remember the heroism of first responders, and reflect upon the lasting impacts of the events of September 11th, 2001. If you don't mind, let's stand out in respect. Please join me for a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, I believe we have Lawrence Flynn joining us virtually. Chris, is that correct?
I just admitted it, yes.
All right.
Can you guys hear everything? Amanda Brock is on there as well.
Oh, that's who we were missing. Yeah, and Amanda. Lawrence, Amanda, welcome.
Good to be here.
All right. So we have some special guests today, and so I'd like to make sure we make time for Mayor Oliver and Ms. Meeks to have a chance to ask any questions if they have any. We certainly have an agenda we want to go through. I read in the paper, and I'm sure the paper got it all right, that you talked about this last night. So night before, okay, well.
I've slept since then.
Is there anything that you would like to ask that before we get started with the rest of what's on the agenda? Would you just like to participate as we go through the agenda? What would help you the most in what you and your council have discussed?
Well, my attorney sent, or our attorney, I should say, she redid the resolution because in the resolution that we were sent, it actually stated that we were a member. And she says, you can't sign it because you're not a member. And so she has redone that. I've brought an extra copy. I don't know who I need to give that to.
Give it to Chris if you don't mind.
So you can look that over and see if that would be satisfactory for us to sign. And she sent me some questions. The first one being, what would be the advantage to West Union joining the OJRSA?
I see you looking at me. I don't have an answer to that question. Would it be all right if we capture your questions? Because what each of the cities have done, and I believe Oconee County, is we have presented to our respective councils more or less the same discussion I believe you folks had. And I have questions that I've relayed back to a number of the folks that the Westminster City Council had that we are going to attempt or endeavor to answer as the course of this committee over time. So we don't have all the answers to those today, but I think it would be good to know what you and your council and your attorneys' concerns and questions are. Know it from you firsthand, not something that I don't doubt Lauren Pierce got it right. We still want to hear it from you. And know what your concerns are and invite you to participate in the discussions as well. So you want to know what the advantage would be to West
What would
Virginia?
our advantage be? And would the ownership of our system be transferred actually to the OJRSA? And with the system that we have, who would operate it and maintain it? Would we still be responsible for doing that, or is that something that the OJRSA would actually take on doing?
I do think we can, this is Lawrence, I think we can answer that. The request would be yes. The report, the recommendation of the ad hoc committee was that all collection systems for all current members, which would include West Union as the wholesale provider, be turned over to OJRSA as the operator. And so that obviously would be part of consideration and would be part of the request. And to the benefits question, I think just at a high level, obviously that analysis still needs to be done by the consultants. But the thinking is that sewer operates much more efficiently on a larger scale. And even though the systems are not fully interconnected, there is cost efficiency associated with having a single operator as opposed to a small system running a collection system and purchasing wholesale sewer. Obviously the devil's in the details on all of that, but that's what most of smaller utility systems are seeing, is that there is efficiency associated with a larger operator.
Okay, would we be in some way compensated for you taking our lines?
So, I mean, the high level question, and that's obviously a question that's also been raised by the Westminster Council, is, there's not some magic pot of money here that is going to pay anyone. The systems are made up of the members that are, participating in this organization. And while it is, most of these utilities are set up as a business enterprise of the respective cities, the way that you generate revenues is from your rate base and the customers that you have. And so if it's a question of figuring out what the financial value is and then paying the cities, that's going to be part of a financial analysis that's performed by the financial consultants, which you'll see is actually part of the agenda items that are on the schedule today. But to think that there's going to be some windfall payment to any of the member cities for the acquisition of the collection systems, I just don't think it's financially feasible. And so the question you ultimately wrestle with is, can you continue to run your system and operate it at the level of health and public safety standards that are necessitated by running a public sewer system on the revenues that you currently receive? And so at some point, if the system's fully appreciated or some of those improvements have not been otherwise made to the system, there's going to be a time and place where the depreciated book value of your system probably means that there's more improvement necessary to be able to keep it operational than there's actually value of the lines in the ground.
And Mayor Oliver, to that point, item number 5 on here, Angie, Metlin, and Joel are going to walk us through doing a financial and technical analysis of the systems, because I think we all have that question. What does that mean to turn it over? You're turning over something that has value. Is the asset value exceed the liability value? How do you calculate all that? That is something that we endeavor to determine. And we have that on our agenda today. We have, I would say, copies of studies that have been done before. And so I think that one is still to be determined. And my take on the resolution, because the Westminster Council passed the resolution that we had, is that the resolution is non-binding, saying we're in this, we want to see what comes up next. And that's what a lot of our agenda today and future agendas is to sort through, sift through a lot of the questions that you're bringing. It sounds very similar to the discussion that we had Tuesday night. I'll let Scott and Celia kind of speak for them, their councils, and Amanda for hers. There are a lot of those moving parts that we need to sort out and determine what that might be. Lawrence is right. There isn't a big pot of money here at the OJRSA to say, okay, we'll write you all the check to get those lines. But there may be other mechanisms that we can utilize that will help compensate the communities back. And I don't mind telling you what I have thought. We have not vetted it out in this committee, is that whenever you have a utility run through your municipality, you have the right to charge a franchise fee. So a franchise fee may be one way that each of the cities are able to be compensated over time for the value of that system. That allows the sewer authority to be able to plan over future years and how they would pay those franchise fees. And another way, and do you do the water You bill your water and sewer customers directly. So the other way is right now Chris has the OJRSA has an agreement with Pioneer Water where they pay them for each meter read that they do. So sewer is often calculated off your water consumption. And so for each meter that Pioneer reads to gather the water data, they then give that to Chris, and he's able to calculate what those bills would be on the sewer side. So there are a couple of ways that I think we can go about not just handing something over free and clear, but that there's some way to compensate each of the entities back. Because you have an obligation to the people who put that there, your citizens own that system. I don't think it would be fully responsible just to give it away, but I also believe what Lawrence said is true. There comes a time when you have to kind of look at it with eyes wide open. What is the real value versus what is the future liability that each of those systems hold, and how do we measure that? And I really expect Angie and Joel are going to start leading us down that path today on how we. Did I put a lot of pressure on you guys right there? I mean,
got it.
So I want to go back and get the seats.
As long as you guys have done your work, we'll know the answers at the end of the meeting. We'll know those answers at 10 o'clock. Is that?
Probably not.
Yeah.
But we'll be on the path. How about that?
Yeah. So.
Well, one of my main concerns is if they take it over and out of our hands, that's a budget item that I'm not going to be able to deal with anymore to help pay my employees. So then I've got to compensate that with something else, and I'm going.
What else
And
is there?
And then again, how am I going to get the numbers to you to be able to, or would our customers that are in our town, would they get a bill straight from the sewer authority, or would they still?
It'd be the same as now. You know, you guys are billing for us currently, so
Right.
that would.
So that would stay the
That would
same?
continue, because I wouldn't want to go through the expense of having to put in a sewer meter to have to bill each individual customer. So that, yes, and that goes to what Mr. Bronson was saying a moment ago, that like with Pioneer, they handle all the billing for us, and I think, you know, we don't pay them any type of a franchise fee, but I think we currently pay them, and I think if I remember right, and I'll have to go back and look, but it may be like a $4 per month per meter administrative fee for them to handle the billing. The cost of the water meter is it's no longer just being used for water, it's being used to bill for us for sewer. So there's a capital component to it as well to help maintain and replace meters as necessary. So that was what we had done, and you guys probably did something along the same line at Rewa, paid Greenville Water to administer the billing for them. In each of the cities, I think from that standpoint, nothing would change from how it is now. You guys would continue to do the billing for us. As far as the paying the employees, I think that's what he mentioned. There's other possible mechanisms in place to recapture some of that money that would be lost from what you may be getting now from billing for your own sewer system and setting that fee that you guys do charge on top of what we have.
So that fee would be negotiable with us. The fee that you pay per meter.
That's correct.
Because we're a small entity versus some of the other rural.
Mm-hmm. Now just keep in mind that, you know, going back to the magic pot of money that doesn't exist, that anything that you guys charge us is your customers are going to be paying that. You know, it's just going to be routed a different way than it is now. So
Exactly. My concern in the mayor as well, if us having to keep that portion of our maintenance program alive, where they're reading the meters, which what you're saying, so that we're doing that aspect of it, and we're paying our maintenance department. We're buying those meters. I'm assuming that's what you meant. that you don't wanna get into buying the meters.
Correct.
And that kind of thing. So when we change out and we put in new meters, then that expense of that meter is us. So we got quite a bit of calculating to do to look at the size, the number of customers that we actually have, the number of meters that we're gonna be looking at for however many years that we're gonna be doing this kind of thing. And, I mean, you put out that $4 a meter read. That may be great in a big rural area where they have lots of customers. That may not, that's why I said, is that negotiable? With us having a smaller, much smaller, more finite.
Well, just to give you some idea, I think there's only 2 customers on Pioneer Systems paying that. We only have 2 sewer customers down along the interstate that's even connected right now. So they're collecting $8 a month. Because they're not charging, if they're not connected to sewer, they're not paying the fee. So that's how it's worked down there.
Okay, well, that just gives me my basis that we have to sit down and look at,
Yeah.
how many customers we have and what the cost of the meters are and the cost of the hours and whatever, what we're generally having to cover it now. That's the only reason I said, is it negotiable? Because we gotta come back with what we can do.
Yeah, and I would expect each city to, you've got your
Right.
fees, you've got to cover your costs, so I would expect that would be something that would vary possibly from city to city. But again, I think that the recommendation would be to have us charge a universal rate to all the customers, regardless of what town they live in or whether they even live in a town.
Yeah.
Everybody be paying the same, so all those costs, those varying costs would be factored into that universal rate and it be distributed that way.
Okay.
Am I correct with that committee, or previous committee? I think that's from the study and the recommendation. I think that's how it was.
Yeah, I think the goal is to get to a standardized rate base that you can run and administer the system on. The whole idea here is that it's a consolidated system and should be run as a consolidated system. But just to that point, and I'm sorry I'm not there to interact directly, but I think the questions that are being raised are exactly the reason that we're requesting the approval resolution. Is it saying that we know there's a lot of questions, you got to work through the process. That's what this Reconstitution Committee is being formed for. And we've got to know that everyone is on board, at least to continue with the process in order to make sure that we're all moving in the same direction.
And if I may as well, since we were talking, I read the article today as well, and it stated in there, I think that it may have been conveyed in that article that there would be like a guaranteed seat that West Union would have on the new board, and that wouldn't be the case. I
went back and read that after you called me and I thought,
yeah,
okay,
so.
did I say that? I don't know.
Yeah, so just to let Ms. Meeks know that when I read it, I reached out to Mayor Oliver and just let her know that that this would give a possibility that there could be representation from the West Union community, but not a guarantee. Because there's going to be one, and I don't know how else to say it, but just to say kind of an at-large position. And that would be, because you got one with each of the cities that are currently there now, then there'd be a seat for a county, and then there'd be that 5th one that would be kind of an at-large, if you will. So it's possible that there could be someone from West Union that could fill that seat if it did go in that direction, but there's no guaranteed spot now for that to happen.
So, if I may, so we can kind of keep going, because we have. When we started these a while back, I committed everybody we'd be in and out in an hour. We'll probably take a little bit more than that today because we really want to hear what you have to say. And are there other concerns that you have that we need to kind of introduce into our thinking here, in addition to the ones that you've given us so far?
I think we've basically touched on the main ones that I'm mostly concerned about.
Okay, all right. And as I mentioned you earlier, and previous to today as well, feel free to have Ms. McCormick reach out to Lawrence Flynn. I think that Lawrence said they've spoken at least on one occasion before, so you can have your attorney just reach out directly to him and ask any questions. Is that good with you, Lawrence?
Absolutely, and that's right. Mary and I spoke. It's probably been 6 months ago. Just to kind of, the idea was to give her a heads up that this was coming. But yeah, I certainly welcome her call and any opportunity to discuss it with her.
And Mayor, do y'all get the copy of the minutes when this group meets? Is that on the? Can we make sure that we distribute the minutes to directly to Mayor Oliver, so she doesn't have to go out and find it, and she can give them?
I believe they currently are on our distribution list. I can verify that, but I believe that they are on that list for distribution.
And Mayor, Ms. Meeks, you are always welcome to come and be a part of these discussions as well. I don't want to cut that out of you, but we want to make sure that you're in the loop, want to hear what your concerns are. I think a lot of your concerns are the same ones that I've heard, that Angie's going to give us the answer by 10 o'clock.
We're glad we moved on.
Joel asked that he would take it.
Joel don't want us to get him.
I'm just distracted by Catherine's thing here that says she's a hot
She's a hot
mess. And if you know Catherine, she's anything but a hot mess. So. All right, well let's unless there's anything else that we need to at least introduce into the room, let's move on. Before I do that, are you okay if we move on with what we have and
Absolutely.
The agenda? So item number C, approval of the minutes, and I'm gonna we have the wrong name in there right now, so it should be the Ad Hoc Reconstitution Committee and Executive Committee meeting of August 14th, 2025. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes? Motion. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we'll move on to item number D, committee discussion and action items. Item number 1, review of master plan recommendations and project costs, exhibit A and B. Miss Catherine Amadine, hot mess herself, and Chrissy Eliezer will take us through those.
This is from the Confluence Conference, and we had sassy Southern phrases that went on our wall, so for the context. So I will go first, I guess, and talk about the Word document, and then Chris will explain kind of that prioritization project matrix that follows. I know you guys received this only a couple days ago, so if you could tell me who has had the chance to read this, that would help me tailor my comments this morning.
I read it.
You read it. Have you had a chance to read it? Okay, great. Okay, great. So the purpose of today is to just resurface this document. As a planner, we hope that master plans don't just sit on a shelf, and so this was an opportunity to just check in on the status of the recommendations. As a reminder, these were recommendations from the master plan. They are not mandatory. They were for consideration for the board and OJRSA, as well as other entities that are noted in yellow throughout. Today, rather than go through each and every single one, I've kind of prioritized. There are several that are either in progress or complete, which may not garner conversation today unless you guys feel otherwise. And then there are several of these recommendations that, although they were valid in the moment that they were written, due to the conversation we're having today and the potential reconstitution, it makes sense to kind of put those on the back burner and pull them back out after we've figured out how the reconstitution is actually going to move forward. So, that being said, the ones that I want to talk through today, the goal I discussed with Kevin ahead of time is that these are just the comments of where they stand today. What we would like to know as your consultant / facilitator team on this side of the table is which ones would you like us to come up with a game plan for how they could be executed. That's going to be a very simple, brief bullet point, like if you guys think you want to get this done, we can come up with a plan, and then that plan can be scrutinized and reviewed by this committee and determined if we want to A, move forward, which will have some cost implications pending what the task at hand is. Does that sound fair? Okay, so we're gonna go straight to page 2. The first couple I'll go through. Amanda, I'll direct at you for the sake of just picking those Oconee County ones out. There was a recommendation to audit property taxes across the county, since many are grandfathered at the agricultural base rate, which diminishes potential revenue for all types of capital improvements, which potentially could include sewer. Have you thought about that? Do you want that to be considered, or do you have any comments about that?
I do have a comment about that. We audit tax millage annually when we do taxes.
So, do you feel like there are no properties that are grandfathered at the agricultural base rate, or they are and
So
they remain?
properties that are grandfathered as agriculture, if there's any change in use type, it triggers a system to go off. Now, someone can build something without us knowing it. It happens all the time. But our building codes department, our planning department, our addressing department, and just assessors division. So every 4 years, we're required to do a reassessment. That audit happens on an annual basis because we don't reassess the whole county in a 1-year period on that 4th year. We do a fourth of the properties every year and then do a wrap up on that last year. That doesn't mean there's no errors there, but there are very few.
Okay, great. So not an effort worth undertaking at this point because you guys are already
Well,
doing
it's an
it.
effort we consistently do.
Right.
It's not worth undertaking. We already do it.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And then the second one is the Code of Ordinances on Municode's website. And I know we've spoken about this before. It still does have the old OJRSA sewer use regulation language, which has the requiring connection within 300 feet of the property line. Is it possible to update that language with the current sewer use regulation for consistency, or remove it all together at some point?
Mr. Root was uncomfortable removing it because the ordinance was in place at the time it existed, but the county does not have jurisdiction over OJRSA. We may be able to make a notation on it, but he was not comfortable removing it.
So do you regulate your sewer by the old OJRSA regulation, or will you regulate based on the new OJRSA regulation?
So we won't regulate the sewer since OJRSA is the regulatory agency.
I guess the simple thing is, Ms. Amanda, is can we just update the regulations in the Code of Ordinances with the current regulations? Just so that way.
But it would not be reflective of the county ordinance because the county doesn't have a sewer ordinance. Does that make sense?
But
we have
stated in your,
just to let you know, Amanda, we have had questions about it before, saying that the county's is contradictory to ours because the language is currently on the website. So to the public, at least to the few that have contacted me asking why we have a different ordinance, that they see that you guys do have an ordinance.
Right. I don't mind asking David if he's comfortable making a notation. And I don't mind talking to him again about it, but he did not want to remove it because we don't remove old ordinances, they're just updated every time. That way people can do research, I think,
right,
is the rationale behind that.
So I guess the bigger question is, can you update the Code of Ordinances to reflect the most current approved language?
Since it's not a county ordinance, probably not. The best thing to do, I believe, his recommendation, and I'm just working off of memory here, so bear with me, was to add a notation that was not applicable after whatever date the SWAG agreements were signed. Now,
Do you link?
we do have regulatory language for standardized lot size for anything that can connect to sewer, but it doesn't regulate the number of feet. So if it's 1/4 acre and you can tap onto a sewer line, you're allowed 1/4 acre density. If you cannot tap to a sewer line, it's 1/2 acre density. So there is some language in our density standard, but it's not listed by proximity or number of feet to a line.
I guess see if that's the way Mr. Root wants to do it, will you see if maybe he can just add some language that, in order to view the most recent and current languages, please visit such and
Yes.
such OJRSA site or
Yes.
whatever.
They won't add that to a code of ordinances because the code of ordinances is a code of ordinances, but there may be a notation on there that this is not regulated by a county.
Okay.
Okay.
Would it be okay for me to reach out to David and maybe talk through some solutions?
Sure.
Just a point of comment, this is something, if you do not get consistency on the developers, will wear everybody out. So I'm just saying, you need to figure out who's gonna be the decision maker on that, get the language right, and make sure everybody understands who's the go-to person that makes the decision on those things.
Yeah, and Lawrence, after you talk to David, can we have that as a report back, maybe the next meeting? Lawrence?
He's muted.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Of course.
Thanks, Lawrence. Okay, so now I'm gonna skip down, and I'll come back to a few at the very end, but I'm gonna skip down to 1G, which is related to land use regulation. There are two under 2, which is 2A and 2B, that also kind of tie into that. And this is basically a conversation about just long-term goals for growth. There was a lot of really good feedback from the survey, from the master plan, from the public, and there has been kind of some different initiatives that occurred. I'll call out, I know Westminster has kind of come up with their own growth plan and has looked beyond their immediate current boundaries to think about what future annexation might look like. Alternatively, Walhalla has kind of opposite goals. They don't really necessarily want to grow at the current moment based on, correct me if I'm wrong, your just like current feeling at your council level and also from your comp plan, less
We just
annexation.
adopted the annexation ordinance.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good, okay, so changes there then, maybe?
Yeah, you missed the March meeting?
I missed it, okay. So in general, there's sounds like there's some good conversation happening at the municipal level, and then the county has mostly zoned as control free. And so what that causes for challenges moving forward is just where infrastructure should and should not go, because as we very much appreciate, septic and wells will continue to be a really viable solution in this region and should. However, you guys do want to accommodate some growth. And so there's been some recommendations in here that articulate some different ways to think about that land use regulation, and it doesn't have to be zoning. It could be just urban growth boundaries, which essentially Westminster has sort of done, and coming up with kind of a regional approach, which is not unique to this area. There are other places in the state that are having this same conversation. Beaufort and Jasper County are a great example. They're the fastest place in the state growing by percentage-wise. And Hardyville is the fastest town in the entire country from a pace perspective. And so they're having this serious conversation too, because they want to make sure that they're not only thinking about utility infrastructure, but how does that affect roads and other things like healthcare and childcare. And so that recommendation is kind of rooted in that. So is that something that this committee would like to see the consultant group come up with a list of action items that could be undertaken for consideration as we think about future growth?
I would like to see it.
Okay.
And Scott, I don't know how you guys feel. I know you've had you have more pressure on you guys than anybody else.
Yeah, we've had those discussions with the county about having some regional, and it would be kind of the pilot program for all the cities to have some of those beyond municipal jurisdiction, urban land development boundaries. We've talked with a couple of the county representatives of the planning departments talking about how do we manage that growth in the non-city boundaries in the immediate proper areas around us, because that does, if we can't provide land development control outside of our city in the immediate areas, that's putting a lot of stress on the cities and the demands that they face through utilities, roads, schools, I mean, everything. So, our recreation programs and facilities. So, we've certainly started those conversations. I don't know exactly how far we've gotten, but I think that those are conversations that still need to be had. I mean, this is a concerted effort to manage the growth in and out of the cities throughout the county. So, I personally would like to see that as well.
Would you like to see that from this group, or do you feel like that's a separate thing that you want to be doing on the side outside of this?
I mean, we're still going to continue those discussions from a city standpoint, and the intent of the county council representatives we met with was to actually deploy this across all the cities, not just in Seneca. It was something that we would start working on that we can use as a model for each of the cities.
Okay.
West Union, Salem, everybody.
Right.
How do we work together? They were a little reluctant to give up decision-making authority, which I agree with. I mean, because those people are not represented by city council; they are represented by county. So county council still wanted the city to have the county to have the decision-making authority, but have input with regards to the impacts from on the city. So great discussions. I think it's a great model going forward. Again, it hasn't quite gained the traction that I had hoped it would, but we're still working on it.
Are you willing to share the steps, that you've taken so far, and then do you want us to build on some recommendations of next steps, or I guess what's the most logical order of operations?
Yeah,
here?
we'll do that offline.
Okay, perfect.
Well, I also met with Ms. Rock and some of the council members, exact same thing, but we were allowing the Seneca project to go first, so it could be that pilot project before we moved on to the next one, which is
Awesome.
our workload balance.
That's great. So I'm gonna amend this to say in progress, because it sounds like it has been. Great. Okay. Just a couple more. Many of these other things, which I'm just gonna highlight at a high level, some of this information about recommunicating the sewer regulation change to the public, that's 1C. Going to 1H, talking about incentive for infill development. It's really helpful if the Reconstitution process is more completed, and then as we spoke at one point, that there's a communications plan that has to result from what we as a group, or what you guys as a group decide for the Reconstitution, that has to go out and explain, this is what's happening, this is what it means, and then you could revisit some of these items like an infill development incentive and how it would work based on how the Reconstitution lands. You guys could be talking about it, each municipality could be talking about it today, maybe you are already talking about it today, but it may change, right, depending on what the results of this Reconstitution are. So anything that kind of would fall into that category, which there are several here, I welcome you to kind of let me know if there's anything that's already been kind of completed in that space. Otherwise, we'll leave it in the come back to this this kind of category. Okay, so we already talked about 2A and B. Moving to 3A. This is a topic that I know Amanda's brought up before, and we tried to address it during the master plan, but DES was unable to provide us with thoughtful data regarding septic tank age within the system. There could be some additional analysis that gets completed. We could look at assessor data, find out the age of the system. We could find out when replacements have happened. What we can't really find out is if maintenance has occurred, right? So somebody may have done a half maintenance, half replacement of their septic system, and that's not recorded anywhere without actually going to that property owner for that information. We can use some GIS data to approximate that and try to identify potential hotspots of failing septic based on GIS.
Miss Amanda, doesn't Folks track failing septic tank data?
They have a little bit.
When a permit is required and information can be obtained, yes, sir, they do.
Okay.
So DHEC does not require a permit for the repair of a septic system. And most people don't replace a septic system unless they have to. They typically opt for the repair. The Lake Kiwi Water Source Protection Advisory Committee also tracks. But again, it's after the fact. It's not it's not anything that's preemptive or that can be traced because the permit requirements changed. One, they changed in 1998, and then they have updated them since 2001. There was some discussion at the state level last year, or year before, for those septic systems around protected watersheds, and Pewee and Hartwell are both considered protected, but it didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
That was my idea there. I'm sorry, Mr. Mullen.
No, I just always hear them talk about the failed, offering some type of statistics around failed septic tanks.
Yes,
and a lot of their
sir.
water protection arguments. So I just didn't know
That's right.
if we've accessed that data from them or not. It could be useful.
So
to have.
everything they have is everything that's been completed, and it's done on a survey basis, typically by an HOA, or through HOAs rather. But when I brought this up to you, Catherine, I thought if we could do it as precursory rather than after the fact, and that we could very difficultly go through building permits and addresses for a period of time when we know that septic was not available.
So we could, that does kind of go hand in hand with the last one I wanted to talk about today, just for time, which is 4A, which is just in general that communication around septic versus public sewer, which is better for the environment. And I think there's a lot of data that exists out there. I think Upstate Forever has done some analysis too in this area for septic. And we probably could start with going to all these individual entities that are mentioned in 4A to see what information they have at the baseline, and then come up with a strategy, to your point, Amanda, on how to better assess that failing septic. And the purpose of that whole exercise would simply be to determine future capital investment of where lines should go to take failing septic areas off of.
Lawrence, do you remember if that legislation that was introduced this past session by a representative in the Clover area prohibiting utilities from requiring connections? Is it still alive? It's just going into the next session? Do you remember?
Yeah, so, obviously we are about to enter the second year of the 2-year cycle. I believe, obviously the Municipal Association came out against it, County Association came out against it, the S&P Association came out against it. It still had some traction. It's been a while since I looked at it, but to my knowledge, it is still alive.
Okay. I'll give you that information.
Yeah.
Duke did provide money for failing septic systems. And so they have a list of every one that they have done and where it is. And that came when they did the work for the various power systems to put them back in service. I think they provided like $1 million.
Does Duke administer that program, or is it administered through, is the money given to it?
It's administered through a committee.
Okay.
And Duke sits on that committee.
Okay.
So again, the decision today is simply, are you interested in thinking more about this topic and would like an order of operations of how to proceed?
I think that the objective of that conversation would be to determine capital line expansions, right, to get to those areas. Are we even prepared to talk about expansion of existing systems beyond taking care of our current systems, and how? I think that's a conversation for down the road, don't you think?
Yeah, because to Scott's point, I feel like right now we're dealing with what shows up today in terms of a new development. Like we're trying to just get ahead of that. And while I really appreciate going back through and kind of diagnosing where the pain points are countywide, I think right now the immediacy, particularly for the cities, is just dealing with what keeps coming up.
Right.
So I think that's a worthy endeavor, but maybe we need to kind of, what we just talked about a minute ago, kind of having that countywide plan on how we're going to handle new developments. And I say new developments like where we're going out into land that has not been
Greenfield land, yeah.
Yeah, there, thank you, Catherine, Greenfield land.
And a lot of this is strategic and capital planning that really should be discussed with the new board, right? I mean, those are
Yeah.
long-term discussion. Our purpose is a short-term
Yeah.
regeneration of an organizational structure.
I like that, Scott. Could we just kick it to the new board?
You certainly could. I think the strategy for how to get this done, since it's not, like, this analysis can't be done like in 5 minutes. So that's more why I wanted to talk about it today, whether or not you wanted to like know how to get there, and maybe you're just like, that's enough today
Yeah.
to know how we're gonna do it, and then we'll attack it a year from now.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that whoever the new board is, I mean, I think the way it's proposed is the board members wouldn't be staff or elected officials. So you're gonna need consultants, I feel, Chris, you're gonna need consultants to work with a green board who may or may not have knowledge of sewer. I'm hoping every one of us can find somebody that is, worked in the sewer world before, but it's probably unlikely. So you're gonna need people to come in and go over all those long-term strategies
Explain
with
it, yeah.
them
Mhm.
and put those plans together. I just think right now, we've got more of a short-term focus. Our job is to come back with ideas on how do we consolidate, how do we come up with a new board, all that.
Yeah.
So I love the thought process, but I just think that's more long-term thinking and planning for the new board.
I know that's, you mentioned that from the planning standpoint, but I'll mention it too from the operational standpoint, is I would almost consider this one to be complete because of what they mentioned a while ago. If our focus is improving what we have, addressing the consent order items, getting the plant back to where it's 100% operational. So, and where's the funding gonna come from to be able to do it? They already have a treatment system, on-site sewer is treatment. They have something in place currently. So our focus is taking care of what we have now, and then, as Kevin mentioned, extending it to these, what you call it, a greenfield.
Yeah,
Because those are
like
being
new
done at the
development, right?
developer's expense.
Right.
So it's not, the ratepayers aren't having to pay for that.
Yeah.
And I feel like we struggle to keep up with that now.
Mhm.
Even though it sounds like you have a number of databases that you're gonna have to mine to get all that out of that.
Oh, for sure.
I think it'd be great to let the next group, after they kind of get I was gonna say the low flying fruit. I was mixing my metaphor.
Low flying.
Low-hanging fruit.
Low flying. Flies, low flying
I'm
flies.
gonna say Doug, everybody.
I need more coffee.
Yeah, and there's
All right.
examples of other things. I mean, I don't know that this is, Senator Corbin did in the North Greenville area where he actually introduced legislation and called out that Blue Ridge area where it's prohibited to put decentralized, so you can't come in there with a packaged treatment plant or
Or a cluster
or
septic.
cluster septics, just for that reason.
Or sewer.
Yeah, it is septic.
I do
and
think
for the
it,
reason.
I mean, I'll just comment, I spent way too much time trying to figure some of these things out in the Greenville area because, in the sewer business, we're all the time saying septic bad, sewer good, but
Sometimes it's
want-
not. Yeah.
yeah, but I wanted a little more definition around that, and you would think that would be easier to get from people like DES to tell you, give you some data, some statistics on, the failure set, but it's hard to get that data. I mean, it is true, but I do think long-term, it will help you plan down there when you start having to make decisions. Am I gonna build a line big enough for this new development and for what's upstream or what's out, then you'll need to have some of that information to be able to tell that developer, we gotta build it this big instead of this.
And a lot of this conversation is gonna be driven on the land development regs and pointed in strategic growth areas, right? I mean, that's conversations we still need to have with the county to
And
say,
that's-
where do we even wanna grow? So how do we even plan accordingly if we don't even know if that's an area that's been targeted for, encouraging growth?
Right.
So I think there's a lot that needs to be taken
That's
care of
exactly
before we can
right.
get into that.
And I made that, in my comment earlier, what I was trying to say is the sewer authority shouldn't be your land development authority. If you start trying to put sewer as
I
the,
agree.
so y'all got to figure out who is gonna make,
Correct.
what entity is gonna make decisions on land use. and let sewer support the decisions that are made and not vice versa.
It's like any other utility, Duke Power or
Yeah,
anybody.
but I
We
mean, if
just
you
are a
start
service
trying to
provider.
use sewer as a tool to control growth or promote growth, then you're gonna frustrate yourselves long term, so.
So I'm gonna edit this based on feedback and send it back to the group.
Yep.
Sound good?
If you have
And
any more,
actually, just as Lawrence, while we were looking, I pulled up the legislation. It was referred to the agricultural committee in the House. And
Okay.
It's been sitting there since
Okay.
March. So
Okay, very good. Yeah, I know there was a concerted effort from all organizations to fight that just because of the implications of what it could do to utilities that had infrastructure in place.
Well, and I notified our delegation too, that it just makes planning
Right.
and sizing for sewer impossible.
Correct.
all right. Anything else, Catherine, on that one? Okay. So we'll move on to item number 2, receive updates from the cities, county, OJRSA regarding support resolutions. I'll just say, matter of fact, the Westminster Council approved it, and they gave a list of about 8 questions that they have. Many of them are the same ones that Mayor Oliver, you and Councilmember Meeks had. So I think a lot of that is to be determined. Celia, how did things go with you guys?
The last meeting, we had a session, we've already shared our comments with Lawrence. Some of the questions they had, a lot of it's gonna be related to the technical and financial evaluations, which is a good thing. Our resolution is on the schedule for next Tuesday. Based on comments from last month, I believe it will be approved, but obviously I can't guarantee what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Bless you, Cal.
As soon as you guarantee what'll happen, it will.
Yeah.
So.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Scott, how about you guys?
Our resolution passed Tuesday, we're all good. They have funded a meeting to come up with questions, so all of it basically the same questions, that I think all of us are gonna have, financial implications, payment, maintenance, rates, still building for you, that kind of thing, same questions. Nothing matters.
First cousin.
I did consolidate your questions and I now added West Union's to a document, so I don't know if you guys wanna send your questions, did you?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna suggest. I think we gotta get to Amanda, but I was gonna suggest that we consolidate all the questions so that everybody has the FAQs answered for across the board.
I'll try to, by the end of this week, draft all of ours and get them to you guys so you can work.
And Lawrence, you've got Walhalla's?
do. So I have Walla and Westminster's.
Okay.
I was actually going to respond just kind of point and shoot, but I think it actually makes sense to do it on a more consolidated basis once we have everyone's.
Yeah.
And so I think what I would probably suggest is if you can consolidate the questions into like a Google share document or whatever document we want to ultimately use. I'll take the first cut at it. We can then workshop it among the group to make sure that answers are generally consistent with how we feel this Constitution Committee wants to move forward, and then we can share those back. But I think the good news from my standpoint is I think the questions that have been asked are all the questions that need to be asked because they're the fundamental questions about how this moves forward, how it happens technically, how it happens financially. We may not have the answers to them, but we can at least state that that's part of the process and that's the diligence that this committee is tasked with undertaking. So I don't see anything that's come up so far that gives me any heartburn about anyone not wanting to move forward with it. I think those are all the really positive diligence questions that need to get asked in order for this process to continue to be successful.
So Lawrence, for consistency's sake, do you want me to send Seneca's to you since the other two cities did as well?
I'll be happy to send mine to the whole group. I just sent mine to the consultants.
Yeah, who do I need to send them to?
You can send it.
You?
Yeah.
I think if you
I'll
send it to
consolidate
me,
for you,
Angie, and Catherine,
Okay.
me, Angie, Catherine, and Joel, then we can kind of workshop it internally and come, maybe that's something that we task. It's another task for us to come back with for the next Reconstitution Committee meeting.
Okay.
So give us 30 days to track them and then take a first shot at them, and we can kind of workshop it at our next meeting.
I'll try to get them to you by the end of the day tomorrow.
Love it.
Yeah. And Amanda, you and Oconee County Council, have y'all had a chance to discuss it, consider it?
Yes, Kevin McCracken, thank you. Their questions were primarily similar to everyone else's, focused first and foremost on the how is it going to work and how much is it going to cost? What will the rates be? Will the rates be equitable across the county? Will there be zones for how the future infrastructure will be considered, and how will the cost breakdown affect the county? Of course, everybody has the question about money on the front side.
Do any of the other cities have any debt associated with their sewer infrastructure?
Amanda, have they adopted the resolution?
No, ma'am, that's for consideration on the October 7th.
Okay.
Council meeting.
Okay, perfect.
Y'all please forgive me, I'm not feeling well this morning.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Oh, I'm fine, I'm just not,
Sorry,
I'm
baby.
not playing the A game today yet.
Can you send those questions over also?
Yes,
to-
yes.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lawrence, Auntie, Catherine, and Joel,
Yes.
got it.
And Scott, just because you asked it and it's on the table, the debt question is a really interesting one, and it's something that's going to really take some deep dive. Basically, any of you who issue debt secured by your utility revenues, they're combined. So you know, on your system, it's going to be water, sewer, and electric. And so we need to figure out, to the extent that you have debt secured by the combined system revenues, we're going to have to make sure that working with your bond counsel, there's a way to decouple that. And so it's going to take some real thoughtful effort around what that may look like.
yeah, that's one of my biggest questions there, and I won't say concern, but I understand that's something that needs to be dove into big time. So that's why I asked if anybody else had that same situation. So
Yeah, Lawrence, it may not be
I can't speak for your respective systems, but you know, when I do this for my other utility clients, we typically have some language in their master bond resolution that specifically provides for and allows for the sale of a component of the system. But there's a thoughtful analysis that has to go into that to effectively decouple the pledged revenue source. And so it's not as, that's probably one of the more difficult issues we're going to need to work through, because we're dealing with publicly issued debt. So,
and I'm assuming since the new board will have the ability to issue debt on their own, I mean, that might be part of that discussion, might be part of the purchase of asset discussion, that at minimum there would be a payment to absorb the outstanding debts so that we can satisfy those on the city side, and the new board purchase or secure additional debt to buy the systems at the value of the debt that's outstanding. And that might be phase one to purchase the system. So that might be kind of a joint discussion. But
Yeah, Lawrence, to Scott's point,
yes.
I think it would be good to go ahead and start that effort. I think that's gonna be the biggest lift. I know we have some big questions on a lot of other matters, but I think we will find resolution to those questions. The debt is something you guys, meaning you bond attorneys, are gonna have to get in and figure that out. Would it be helpful, we used, almost said the McNair firm, the Burr Foreman.
So I think you and Scott both use Mike Burns.
Okay.
So obviously have no problem reaching out to him and giving him a heads up on this. So yeah, I'm not sure who Walhall's bond counsel is, but if you share that with me, we can.
It's same as Oconee County, Lawrence, King Plazart.
Okay, got it. So we can, I can reach out to, so is that Michael?
It is.
Okay, so I can reach out to Mike and let them know that this process is starting up, and to take a look at y'all's respective utility debt obligations and start thinking through, if this is a movement that the cities won't want to otherwise undertake, what it looks like to potentially decouple the sewer systems from those utility revenue on the ledges.
Mayor, does West Union have debt on the sewer system? No, okay.
I knew she did because I heard her speak last week.
Yeah.
I know her thoughts
Okay.
on that.
I know how to say no.
is that something we need to go ahead and get like a phase one scope of work together to, I mean, I know
Sounds like-
Lawrence is gonna have some conversations, but
Yeah,
the sooner we can authorize some movement on that, I think.
Yeah.
Because we have RIA debt associated with it as well. We
Yeah.
just did all of our lift stations, and so we have outstanding RIA debt with those.
Yeah, so that's SRF, you did clean water SRF, yeah.
yeah, and we have
So,
USDA
and
and private health, so.
that's the bigger one, probably, Kevin, the USDA.
Yep.
Because they are explicitly gonna have consent rights. Trish Comp and the SRF are gonna be probably a little easier to work with. They actually are aware of this reconstitution process because of obviously RIA is intimately familiar with this. That's part of the conversation, Chris, and I think some of you actually even may have met with Trish to discuss, some of their capital planning, and that was actually kind of what precipitated the discussion of starting the reconstitution process. Was that she basically said that we were not an eligible borrower under their financial regs because of a lot of these issues that we're now trying to address. So it's kind of like a circular firing squad in some regards, and so we'll I don't think we'll have any issues with SRF, but if y'all are okay with me going ahead and reaching out to Mike and Mike, I have no problem starting that process. And then, because I think the thought is, at least the next action item on the agenda this morning is potentially engaging a financial advisory firm
Right.
to work through that financially. And they'll obviously need to work with each city's
Yeah.
bond council
Right.
to thoughtfully work through what that process is, to be attainable or not.
That
Yeah,
was what I was getting at. Do we need to go ahead and try to figure out
Well-
a mechanism to where they can start formally working on it?
yeah, so I think let's let Lawrence talk to the two and figure out what we
Okay.
think needs to happen on that, and then we can develop a scope. Because it might be, guys, we might have to take this in little bites. We're going to get to this whole scope of work kind of
Right.
thing, but maybe that's the first domino that falls, is just looking at the debt, how it could be restructured, what that looks like for each entity, and are there any deal breakers in the whole thing?
Yeah, to me, the financial discussion, that's critical point
Right.
number one.
Right.
Is the debt associated with the system.
Correct.
We can agree to any payment whatsoever, but we're all bound by whatever our
Correct.
loaning agencies are gonna hold us.
And again, I was making that point because I've been through this and we started talking about the debt. That was the first thing we talked about, and it was the thing that was still at the very end.
Yeah.
Was being negotiated and trying to figure out how to make that work. So I can assure you that's
That needs to
probably gonna be. the
Sorry
same
to
thing.
derail the conversation.
No, well, I mean, the sooner we get it figured out, because before you know it, it's gonna be January, we're gonna be in budget development mode, and we could keep acquiring more,
Right.
kind of depending on what's going on in each city. So we need to start planning a path forward on how we're gonna do that. And Lawrence, I would even include in those discussions that if any of the cities are gonna have some additional debt coming up, that we go ahead and start thinking how we would structure that with this effort in mind.
Yeah, and so I will say the one good thing about that, it definitely makes sense to go ahead and put it on the table. The way you issue revenue bonds is typically on a parity basis, meaning everyone stands shoulder to shoulder from a coverage standpoint. If we knew this was happening, we could probably go ahead and ear off or subordinate the next series of loans that you did and secure them by, Kevin, only your water and electric revenues, which frankly would be a diminished lien status, but then you have some forward mechanism to bring the debt back to parity once you potentially sell your sewer system or move your sewer system. There are ways to absolutely do it, but it is a lot easier if you think about it and you do it correctly on the front end.
Okay. All right. I would like to propose we take a 5-minute break. I've drank a lot of coffee, so. And then we will come back and we'll endeavor to wrap this up by no later than 10:30.
Yeah,
Is that good for everybody? I know you're kind of. We're aiming for an hour, but I really wanted to make sure we
No, this is
honor
good discussion.
our special guest today.
I'm not special.
Yes, you are.
All right, we will come back at 10:09 based off your iPhone, not the Colorado.
We're good.
We're good. All right. So we're back from our break. Based off of my calculation, we have got through D2, although D3, consider reorganization and consolidation comments. Really, I think we just covered those. You guys are going to compile those so that we can look at them and begin to address them. Moving on to item D4, approval of draft legislation to amend the Joint Authority Water and Sewer Systems Act, Exhibit C. We all have a copy of that here. Lawrence, run us through this real quick. Has anything changed in this that we've seen a couple of times, those of us who've looked at it?
It has not. It's in the format that I think best represents the thoughts that if we had, if we were king for a day, we could make all the changes that we otherwise want to make to the statute that I think are just helpful and clarifying changes.
Yeah.
Obviously, all of that is going to be subject to whatever thoughts they have at legislative drafting. The good news is that Senator Alexander is aware that this is a working draft. They've seen some of this language in prior iterations. Obviously, we were trying to figure out exactly what the membership organization edits look like, and I think they saw a version that had some provisions around elected members that is no longer in there. But my thinking would be it's probably beneficial to go ahead and get that over to them so it can be introduced into legislative drafting, and we can start having some comments back and forth in advance of hopefully getting it refiled before the legislative cycle starts up in January. And so I think if everyone is comfortable with the language, we can certainly talk through, what's in there. But if everyone's comfortable with it, it is okay to move forward. My goal would be to go ahead and get that over to Senator Alexander and his legislative liaisons to get it in queue for consideration.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm good with you.
All right. So, Amanda, have you had a chance to look at the language?
I have. I don't have any issues with it.
Chris, I'm wondering if perhaps we need to maybe have one more scheduled meeting with Senator Alexander, maybe invite Mr. Whitmire and Mr. Duncan to come as well and remind them where we are with the effort and make sure they don't have any consternation with it. Let them know that that we're going to talk about it that way because they had the, what did you call the gentleman, Lawrence, they have a legislative draft or whatever that Senator Alexander brought on the phone that day, because ultimately it goes to them to get vetted before it gets introduced as any type of legislation. Maybe go ahead, Chris, if we can get that meeting scheduled and get that effort underway now before the delegation members really start to, I know October gets to be a busy month as they start doing a lot of planning and pre-filing for the upcoming session. If we could get that meeting with them in the next couple of weeks, that might help the effort with that. Anybody else have any thoughts, ideas, comments, suggestions? All right. So moving on to
Kevin, I would just say I'd make myself available if and as needed. So just let me know. I'll take my direction from y'all based on that conversation, and once y'all tell me to send it to whomever I need to, I'll do so.
Okay. Thank you, Lawrence. Moving on to item D5, present considerations for financial and technical evaluations. Ms. Metlin and Mr. Jones.
Thanks. So let me take this?
Yeah,
Okay.
good run in.
So, I'm all about building off of successful things that others have done. So, even when we were doing the study, I spoke with Joel in his previous capacity at ReWalk as they've gone through some of the same. Also spoke with Carol Elliott with Metro Connects, who is basically the collection system entity in Greenville, and they went through a major consolidation effort a number of years ago. This was probably in the 2020 range, a little bit before, about that time. So I asked Carol if she would share with us the scopes of work for the different pieces of the evaluation on that consolidation. So I have those, actually just got them yesterday. But what I want to say is the way they undertook this, and Joel, feel free to, it was a sort of a sequential sort of thing. So they first started the technical evaluation. And to the point that we've talked about all along, we're not talking about having someone come in, pop every manhole, look at it, TV every line. It was more of a high level assessment. The good news is we've done some of that with the study. And then in addition, OJRSA has requested each of the entities to do a CIP, basically do a capital improvement plan to identify what you are doing or have done or need to do on your system. So we've got a good bit of information that we could synthesize to get some baseline information on the technical side of things. There might still need to be some, but what I'm trying to do is I don't want to spend, or you all to spend, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to investigate every sewer asset out there. I think we've got information that we can do that, so that you've got somebody that can just kind of pull it all together, take what's already been done, what you all just did, and put together some high level cost estimates. Or maybe we're at a point where we've got that, we pull it together. Maybe we hold off on any technical evaluation initially and go toward the financial. So they did the technical evaluation, which then informed on cost estimates. Then they brought in a financial advisor to look at all of that, look at the debt pieces, all the consolidation efforts. And then at the end, they brought in a rate consultant to look at a unified, consistent rate across the board to undertake what needed to be done. And it's a 30-year plan. It was over $300 million what they ended up with, and they're sequentially doing it. And they've been very successful in getting direct appropriations from the federal entities, a good bit of state money. This all happened when the ARPA money hit, so they got two pots to do some of that. So my point is saying, I think that if we can get through I'm almost of the opinion that we need to take it maybe smaller steps at a time. And maybe we have somebody, once Lawrence meets about the debt, since that is the big elephant in the room, that we have somebody come on to work through that piece of it. And maybe in the meantime, we can synthesize all of the capital needs that we've got right now. And then we have someone on the financial side look at that, and then we do the rates. So
could we ask you to maybe give us a process that you
Sure.
just kind of delineated
Yeah.
there so that we can look at it?
And we've got the scopes. I don't think, because this happened in 2020, probably the costs are not applicable. But I also think that we have control of it now, where we can make it affordable, do this in a way that makes sense, gives us the information, and doesn't spend a lot of money on this effort right now, when what we really need is the money on the back end to do a lot of the work.
Well, how about if we do this, Angie? How about, because I have those,
Yeah.
we did that as part of the corrective action plan for the consent order that we're under. If maybe you and I meet and we go through the submittals that we had received from the cities, you already know
Right.
about our portion of
Yeah.
it. And that you go through that and we can bring it back to the next meeting as far as what you see at a high level for what had been presented. Because they've all been done by different firms.
Correct. Right. Yeah, I think that is fine. And for West Union, I don't know if you all have any kind of baseline evaluation information on your system. I know we met, we talked through that. or any needs that you know of, immediate needs on your wastewater collection system. If you can let us know what those look like, that would be great. But I think the financial pieces, at least the debt piece, maybe that's our first step. And after Lawrence talks with the bond councils, we can come back together and sort of develop a very strategic scope of work where it's really targeted, and because that's what happens is if you make the scope overly broad, you will have scope creep and things will get expensive really, really quickly. So we've got some go-bys here, which are great, but I think that we need to be very, very strategic in how we do this so that we take advantage. You guys each spent money to develop your own sewer CIP. We should use those to the extent we can. So does that make sense?
And when did we give those? Was that earlier this year?
It was
May?
it was around, it seemed like it was right after Helene, because I think we gave an extension.
Yeah. Just
on
end
it
of last
because
year, yeah.
The storm, so it was sometime maybe in October
Yeah.
or so.
So I'm fairly certain we'll have updates. And that's just because the skip money we got,
Right.
it went farther than we thought it was
That's
going
awesome.
to. So we're going to have done more, and we've also digitized our system and GIS that we didn't have when we submitted that, I think. I
Okay.
think we're in the process of doing this now. So it may be worth our time for you, I'm asking you to help remind us, to send it back to us and ask if we have any updates and give us a time period to respond to that. I know we're going to have some.
Okay.
And there's a good chance that the other cities as well. That way you're working from the most current data rather than something that at this point's a year old. With skip money, a year old is a lot of time.
Yes.
Without skip money, probably wouldn't have changed.
Exactly. I mean,
it did.
And I think that's great to hear. I agree with you. I think we need to look at what you guys have done and where you really are right now. So.
Well, come to Westminster, we're tearing up right up the middle of the road in 123. It's very not wonderful. So.
Yeah. But like I said, I think that it sounds to me like that debt issue is probably one of the first things that we kind of need to get a handle on. So that would be a place to start. And so just understand that, as we alluded to, a lot of your questions are going to get answered in a sequential fashion as we work through this. I don't know that anybody wants to just go ahead and I don't want you all to put out an RFQ for a big study until we really kind of hone in on where we think we need to dig in more. I want to use the work that you guys have put forward, because all this was ongoing when we were doing the initial study, and everybody was doing some things, and this was required as a part of the consent order. All of this, we want to make use of that. So I don't want to spend money to redo what you've already done.
And we have some updated information as well with studies that we had to do for flow.
Right.
That were completed back in late spring, early summer.
Okay. And so, Mayor.
The only thing I would add to that, Angie, is that just for everyone's benefit, on the financial advisory side, and so I think there is a procurement piece of this.
Yes.
On the financial advisory side of that analysis, the group that did the consolidation or the financial pro forma analysis for Metro Rewa was First Trine Advisors, who is also Oconee Joint Regional's financial advisor. I think it probably makes sense to reach out to them, absent some overriding procurement concerns. Obviously, Raptelis did the rate model. We've been working with Wildan here, so just also give some thought to who the entity or entities may be, and that may need to be done against the backdrop of who the individual member cities are using as their financial advisors. If they have particular thoughts on rate consultants, probably better to go ahead and smoke some of those issues out now.
Yeah, I think we were talking about doing an RFQ for some of this, but that is definitely a point of consideration. And Lawrence threw out, so his partner, CD Rhodes, was also a part of the Metro Connect consolidation effort. So as we kind of get into some of this, we may ask him to join us as well, since he's kind of been through this relatively recently, and can have some realistic information to share, and maybe can also keep us, again, I'm all about using what other folks have done that has been successful, and I think at the end of the day, what's happened with Metro, with that consolidation, would be considered a success. And if we can avoid any pitfalls that they had to navigate, I want to do that. So,
Sounds good. All right. Chip, you've been conspicuously quiet today. I just want to give you a chance
I
to.
have nothing to, I am not committing anything to the success from that standpoint. What really is relevant to y'all today, so.
Well, at some point, we look to you in the 207 plan to give us your blessing on this, don't we?
Yeah, so within the 2A plan,
Or 208, I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I mean,
Your version.
oh yeah, might have been a better version, I don't know. You know, ultimately, it is about trying to make sure everybody's on the same page and working together and pulling together with OJRSA, whether you state separate systems or not. And I do think within Oconee County, the things we've seen, that the ability to bring that together and work together will probably help to address some other issues down the road of places that want to develop that haven't developed yet, and some people that think that maybe we should develop without participating in sewer, where it might be better. So from a planning standpoint, the things that have gone in consolidation in Greenville and some other places, I think have been beneficial for the overall community. So we, as a 2A entity, we support that consolidation because we think it makes it run more efficiently and effective for all communities.
Well, thank you for telling us that today. I'll sleep better tonight. All right, and Mayor Oliver and Ms. Meeks, thank y'all for joining us today, and we will find a response or an answer to your questions as we go, and I hope you know you're welcome here anytime that we meet. And because Chris puts them on the agenda, I feel obligated to read them, so I'm going to read item number E, upcoming meetings. All of those meetings will be held here in the Lamar Bell's boardroom at the OJRSA. The Operations and Planning Committee meeting will be September 23rd at 8:30 a.m., immediately followed by the Finance and Administration Committee on September 23rd at 9 a.m. The next Board of Commissioners meeting will be October the 6th at 4 p.m., and then this committee will meet. The Ad Hoc Reconstitution Committee will meet October the 9th, 2025 at 9 a.m. With that, unless anyone else has something else, looks like we do not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Have a motion? And a second? All in favor, please, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much
Opposed exit.
for being here.